Welcome to episode 430. And in this Ayurveda Q&A episode, I'm answering questions about where to begin with Ayurveda when it feels overwhelming, how perfectionism is often a signal from the nervous system, and how to stay consistent during stressful times. This episode is for anyone who wants to bring more awareness, curiosity, and consistency into their life without feeling overwhelmed or pressured. So please stay tuned. Welcome to the Elements of Ayurveda podcast. I'm your host, Colette. And if you're new to Ayurveda, I recommend starting with the first few episodes where I introduce the foundations of Ayurveda and the doshas. To learn more, work with me, or explore my offerings, you can visit elementshealingandwellbeing.com. And for podcast updates, join me on Instagram at Elements of AyurvedaPodcast. And before we begin, just a quick note to say that this podcast is for educational and inspirational purposes only. It's not intended as medical advice. Now let's dive into this episode. Hey there and welcome back. It's Colette for a solo episode today where I'm taking questions from the Elements of Ayurveda podcast community. And this community has a new online home. And I created this community for those who wish to go deeper into Ayurveda together. Inside this community, you'll find early access to the podcast episodes, monthly live Zoom meetups where we get to see each other face to face and have great discussions, member forums for discussion and Q&A, mindfulness and self-care practices, and seasonal group challenges. This community is a conscious, supportive space to connect, learn, and grow with others walking the Ayurvedic path. So come join us, and you can check out more on elementshealingandwellbeing.com/community, or just click on the link in the show notes and come say hello, introduce yourself, and be part of this living, breathing community. And I hope to see you there. Okay, so let's get into the first question from the community. It says, Colette, I have been consuming information on Ayurveda for a long time, and I'm feeling overwhelmed. I don't know where to start. Do you have any advice on where I could begin? Thanks so much for this question. And this is such a common place to be, especially for people who genuinely care about their health. Ayurveda is vast. And when you've been learning for a long time, it can start to feel overwhelming. So my first piece of advice is always start with your own health. This is where I started. And this is where you'll get to feel Ayurveda, feel the shifts and changes viscerally in your body and mind. And this is the best catalyst to change. When you start feeling those shifts in your body and mind, you know that you want to continue these practices. And that's why I recommend starting with some simple daily habits. Ayurveda doesn't ask us to master the whole system at once. It asks us to establish rhythm. And healing does not come from intensity or doing more. It comes from consistency. What we do day in and day out, when we wake, how we eat, how we transition through our day, how we digest not just our food, but our experiences and emotions. This is what shapes our health over time. And daily habits are often underestimated because they're subtle. They don't promise dramatic overnight change, and they don't feel as impressive as a cleanse or a big lifestyle overhaul. But in Ayurveda, these small, repeated actions are constantly communicating safety or stress to the nervous system, clarity or confusion to digestion, and steadiness or depletion to the body's tissues, the dhatus. That's why daily habits are such a powerful place to begin. They work with the intelligence of the body rather than against it. And over time, they rebuild our agni, the digestive fire, nourish the dhatus, the body's tissues, and gently retrain the mind to listen instead of override. And because they're practiced every day, they compound physically, emotionally, and energetically. So rather than asking, what should I do? I encourage you to ask yourself, what would help my system feel more stable right now? And often that looks very simple. For example, starting with your bedtime. Ayurveda teaches us to live in tune with the circadian rhythm. And being in bed by 10 p.m. is of paramount importance for our health and well-being because the Pitta energy rises in the environment around 10 p.m. And this rise in Pitta energy is not for us to be scrolling or up late at night. It's for our internal house cleaning to digest, process, and assimilate the food and experiences in our day, to carry out detoxification and rejuvenation, setting us up to perform optimally the following day. And so if you're not in bed by 10 p.m., this rise in Pitta energy feels like a second wind, a boost of energy, which makes it harder to fall asleep. I talked about the circadian rhythm in detail in episode 8 titled Ayurveda and the Circadian Rhythms. Understanding this information can help you set up your day to work with the energies of the doshas rather than working against them and struggling. Other simple habits to incorporate are establishing regular wake and meal times, eating in a way that's nourishing to your unique constitution, and scheduling some time in nature to help you ground away from devices. These may sound basic, but they're foundational. When rhythm is restored, clarity follows. Another important reframe is this. Ayurveda is not a checklist. It's a relationship. You don't need to apply everything you've ever learned. 1 or 2 daily habits practiced consistently and with compassion will take you much further than constantly changing strategies. And to set yourself up for success and ensure that these practices are sustainable, make sure that these habits are tailored to your unique constitution and your lifestyle. And if you feel like you need guidance or structure in building those foundations, then check out my online services. I offer online consultations where I can tailor a strategy for your diet, lifestyle, self-care, mindfulness practices to you and your lifestyle. Or if you prefer to study alone, check out my Daily Habits for Holistic Health program. This is designed to help you implement these daily habits. It's a 28-day online self-paced program to help you implement this Ayurvedic wisdom into lived practice. And you can find all the details in the show notes. This episode is sponsored by Kerala Ayurveda Academy. If you're passionate about holistic health and natural living, Kerala Ayurveda Academy invites you to deepen your connection to ancient wisdom in 2026. Upgrade your lifestyle, align with nature's rhythms, and gain the knowledge and confidence to inspire others on their healing journeys. They offer comprehensive Ayurvedic education for beginners, advanced students, and wellness professionals with flexible learning options available online and in person in the Bay Area, California. For those seeking a truly transformative experience, join their all levels India immersion trip in summer 2026, where you'll learn and heal through authentic Ayurvedic traditions in their place of origin. And early bird registrants receive $500 off when you enroll by March 1st. Visit keralaayurveda.us/courses to learn more. And as a special bonus, receive $50 off tuition for a beginner long-term Ayurvedic training program or 10% off any short program when you apply or register using the code ELEMENTS. And you can find all those details in the show notes. Okay, let's move on to the next question, which is, I tend to be a perfectionist and I can see that this affects my health. How can I manage this perfectionism? Thanks for this question. And it's such an important awareness because perfectionism is not a personality flaw. It's often a signal from the nervous system. In Ayurveda, we see that perfectionism can arise from different doshic patterns, particularly Vata and Pitta doshas. And understanding which energy is dominant helps us respond with more compassion and precision. With Vata, perfectionism usually comes from instability. When the nervous system does not feel safe enough to rest, the mind tries to control outcomes to create a sense of security. And this can look like overthinking, second guessing, indecisiveness, or constantly adjusting routines. The system is craving grounding, reassurance, and steadiness. With Pitta, perfectionism comes from intensity and rigidity, the classic type A tendency. Here, the nervous system may feel capable and driven, but it's operating under constant internal pressure. Discipline turns into self-criticism, and commitment becomes control. Over time, this inner heat affects digestion, sleep, and emotional resilience. Now, in both cases, the healing shift is away from perfection and towards rhythm. Ayurveda doesn't ask us to do everything right. It asks us to do a few supportive things consistently and with compassion. And again, this is where the daily habits become so powerful. When habits are approached as nourishment rather than performance, they help regulate the nervous system, rebuild trust with the body, and soften both Vata anxiety and Pitta rigidity. Perfectionism also thrives in isolation. When we're alone with our expectations, self-care can easily become another thing to get right. This is where community plays a deeply therapeutic role. Being in a shared space allows us to normalize imperfection. And I experience this in our Elements of Ayurveda podcast community as we share stories about our struggles. It allows us to see our healing as a journey that's cyclical and seasonal, and to move out of self-judgment and into compassion and understanding. And so my advice here is first identify which dosha is at play here with your perfectionist tendencies and bring those daily habits to either calm the Vata nervousness or the Pitta rigidity. And let me give you some general tips here. For the Vata dosha, it will be to focus on grounding with daily self-care practices like Abhyanga oil massage, meditation, yoga, or pranayama, calming breathing practices. And for the Pitta dosha, I would advise letting go of the to-do list and having more fun and bringing in more moderation and less intensity. And fun group activities are a great way to cool that intensity of Pitta. Just make sure it's not a competitive group environment. But this is a great practice for Pitta to kind of let go of that need to have everything to be a certain way. Over time, the daily habits and a supportive community helps the nervous system learn that rest is allowed, consistency is enough, and healing does not require constant striving. Ayurveda reminds us that well-being is not built through control. It's cultivated through awareness, compassion, and connection. So I hope that helps. Thank you so much for your question. And, perfectionism comes up a lot in my consultations, and certainly something to pay attention to if it's a tendency of yours. And again, if you need support, check out my online services in the show notes. Okay, the final question here is, how can I stay consistent with my Ayurveda routines when life gets busy or stressful? This is such a common challenge today, and it's important to remember, consistency in Ayurveda is not about willpower or perfection, it's about rhythm. Life is always going to bring unpredictability, stress, travel, or extra demands, and that can naturally disrupt even the best laid routines. The first step is to give yourself permission to be human. Missing a morning meditation or a nourishing meal doesn't mean you failed. In fact, the body responds more to regular, gentle rhythm over time than to intensity or rigidity. That only increases stress. That's why I always encourage starting with small, simple daily habits like the consistent wake time or a few minutes of grounding in nature, meditation, or breathing practices to start your day. These small, repeated actions are what gradually teach your nervous system to trust that you can care for yourself, even when life gets hectic. And I would also add here to nourish your body with warm, easy to digest food when life gets stressful, and not to skip meals, as this would add more stress to your body. Now, this requires some planning in advance, whether it's batch cooking or asking for support. But prioritizing your self-care is key to navigating stressful or busy times with resilience. Another important piece of the puzzle here is having a supportive person or community, sharing your concerns with others and allowing them to support you, as going through challenging times alone is going to make things more difficult. What's the saying? A problem shared is a problem halved. Finally, notice the subtle shifts when you do manage to maintain even a small habit during a stressful period. A calmer mind, steadier digestion, or a more centered response to challenges. These are the signs that rhythm is building. And over time, these moments compound. And what once felt impossible becomes natural. So when life gets busy, simplify. Focus on the small habits that anchor you and lean on shared reflection and support. That combination of structure, self-compassion, and community is what sustains long-term consistency and well-being. And please reach out if you need support. Don't go through these tough times alone. And from these questions, I can see that maybe it's a good time to do a habits challenge within the podcast community. So I'm going to set that up. We have our next live Zoom meetup on Saturday, February 7th. And so let's discuss in that Zoom meetup a plan for a challenge to help you implement and get this foundation of daily habits going, especially during these stressful times. They can really be such a foundational support. So thank you for all those thoughtful questions. And as I wrap up, I want you to reflect. What would it feel like to approach your health with curiosity rather than self-criticism? Imagine observing your habits, body, and mind as if you were a kind, interested friend. Noticing without judgment, listening without pressure. How would your daily practices feel if there were acts of exploration rather than performance? Curiosity invites gentleness. It allows mistakes to become information rather than evidence of failure. It encourages rhythm and consistency over perfection. And it makes room for awareness, for connection, and for transformation. If this resonates, one way to bring it into your daily life is through small, consistent habits, the kind that nurture your body, mind, and nervous system over time. Approach your health with that curiosity and allow yourself to be held, guided, and witnessed on your journey. And so what I'm really saying here is have lots of self-compassion. Life is challenging. And especially at the moment, there's lots of stressful events. And so as you go on this journey with Ayurveda, first of all, it's great that you've started this and you want to make shifts in your health and well-being, but have lots of compassion as you go through this journey and implementing these habits. And it's a learning process, but you're on the right path. So give yourself props for that alone. And again, if you need support, check out my online offerings on elementshealingandwellbeing.com, and I'll put the link in the show notes. And if you want to chat before booking, then just take advantage of my free 15-minute services inquiry call. We can hop on a Zoom call and I can answer all of your questions. And if you think that this episode will be helpful to family or friends, please share it with them so we can spread this wisdom of Ayurveda. And if you're finding this podcast helpful, I would really appreciate a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. And thanks in advance for that. And don't forget to follow or subscribe so the new episodes download for you automatically. And please come join me on social media. On Instagram, it's Elements of Ayurveda Podcast. And on Facebook, it's Elements Healing and Wellbeing. And so until next time, take good care of yourself, be well, and bye for now. Slán go fóill.